Welcome to Faith Revival Holiness Church, also Faith Revival Place International. I'm your host, Minister and Prophet, M.G. Mears. Let's begin in prayer. Father, touch the broken heart and heal them. Those that are sinners, let them be saved. Those that are wicked, stop their wickedness and get right with the Creator and do righteous deeds instead of wicked deeds. Father God, soften the people's hearts on this planet. And woo them back to your grace and your mercies. I pray. We thank you and praise you. There needs to be repentance in all the land of the living. For judgment is coming. And also revival. Today we're going to talk more about the book of Jasher. Jasher actually is not just a name of a person. Really, it's what it represents. As what it represents. It's the people that did righteousness. And the word Jasher means that. And it sounds like a nice name to name your child as well, which you could do. But it's really representing what the meaning of that word represents. So it's Jasher, Avram, Abram is Avram in Hebrew. Jasher chapter 8, 1 through 36, 9, 1 through 19 of Jasher. And it says, and it was in the night that Abram was born, that of all the servants of Tyre and all the wise men of Nimrod. And he came and ate and drank in the house of Tyre. And they rejoiced with him all night. And when all the wise men and conjuncted went out from the house of Tyre, and they left up their eyes towards heaven that night to look at the stars. And they saw, and behold, one very large star came from the east and ran in the heavens and swallowed up 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. And all the wise men and the kings and his conjoins were astonished at the sight. And the sage understood this matter, and they knew its importance. And they said to each other, this only betells the child that has been born to Terah, his night, who will grow up and be faithful and multiply and possess all the earth, and his children forever. And his seed will slay the great kings, inherit their lands. And the wise men and the conjoins went home that night. And in the morning, all these wise men and conjoins rose up early and assembled in a point of the house. And they spoke and said to each other, behold, the sign that he saw last night is hidden from the kings. It has not been made known to him. And should this thing get known to the king in the latter days, he will say to us, why have you concealed this matter from me? And then shall all suffer death. Therefore now let us go tell the king the sight which we saw. interpretation thereof, and we shall then remain clear. And they did so. And they all went to the king, bowed down to him to the ground, and said, May the king live, and may the king live. We heard that a son was born to Terah, and the son of Nahor, the prince of the host. And we latter night came to this house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him at night. And when the servants went out from the house of Terah to go to our respective homes, to abide there for the night, we left up our eyes to the heaven, and we saw a great star coming from the east, a great star coming from the east, and the same star ran with great speed, swallowed up four great stars from the four sides of the heavens. And the servants were astounded at the sight which we saw, and were greatly terrified. And we made our judgments upon the sight, and knew by the wisdom and the proper interpretations thereof that this thing applied to the child that was born to Timar, who will grow up and multiply greatly, and become powerful, and kill all the kings of the earth, and inheritance of all their lands, and he is the seed forever. And now our Yahweh, and our Lord and King, behold, we have truly established there with and we have seen concerning the child. And it seems good to the king to give his father value for his child. And we will slay him before he shall grow up and increase in the land. And his increase us, and that we have our children perish through all this evil. And the king heard their words, and they seemed good in his sight, and the words, and he sent and called for Terah, and Terah came before the king, and the king said to Terah, I have been told that a son was yesterday that night born to thee, and after the manner of observing in the heavens at his birth. And now therefore give me the child, that we may slay him before his evil springs up against us. And I will give thee for his value, and thy house full silver and gold. And Terah answered the king and said to him, My lord and king, I have heard thy words, and thy servants shall do all the king's desires. But my lord and king, I will tell thee that happens to me yesternight, that I may see the advance of the king will give to his servant. And then I will answer the king upon what he has just spoken. And the king said to him, Speak. And Terah said to the king, Aon, the son of Mored, came to me yesterday, saying, Give unto me a great and beautiful horse that the king gave thee, and I will give 3 silver and gold, straw, and provide for value. And I said to him, Wait till I see the king consume thy words. And behold, whatever the king said, that I will do. And ho and now my king and Lord and king, behold, I have made this thing known to thee, an advance which my king will give unto his servant, that will I follow. And the king heard the words of Tiri, and his anger was kindled, and concealed him in light of the fools. And the king answered Tiri, and said to him, art thou so silly, arrogant, and deceitful in understanding, to do this, to give my beautiful horse for silver and gold, or even straw or provide? Art thou so short of silver and gold that thou shouldest do things, because thou canst not obtain straw and provide feed for thy horse? And what is silver and gold to thee, or straw provided, that thou give away fine horse, which I gave thee, like which there is none to be held on the whole earth? And the king left off speaking. And Tiri answered the king, saying, like upon this has the king spoken to his servant. And I beseech thee, my lord and king, that is this which thou didst say upon me, saying, give thy son, that we may slay him. And I will give thee 3 silver and gold for the value. That will show I do with silver and gold after the death of my son. Who shall inherit me? Surely then at my death the silver and gold will return to my king that gave it. And when the king heard the words of Tiri and the parables which he brought concerning the king, he grieved him greatly, and was vexed at this thing. And his anger burned within him, and Tiri saw the anger of the king was kindled against him. And he answered the king, saying, all I have is the king's power. The king's power, and it and whatever the king desireth to do his servant, and he let him do. Yea, even my son, he is in the king's power, without value of exchange, and he and his 2 brothers, and all the older than he. And the king said to Tiri, no, but I will purchase thy youth son for a price. And Tiri answered the king, saying, beseech thee, my lord and king, to let thy servant speak the word before thee, and let the king hear the word of the servant. And Tiri said, let my king give me 3 days time, to still I consider this matter within myself, and consult with my family concerning the words of my king. And he pressed the king greatly to agree to this. And the king hearkened to Tiri, and he did so, and gave him 3 days time. And Tiri went out from the king's presence, and came home to his family, and spoke to them, and all the words of the king. And the people were greatly afraid. And it was in the 3rd day that the king sent Tiri, saying, send me thy son for the price as I spoke to thee. And should thou not do this? And I will send and slay all those has in thy house, so that thou hast not even a dog remaining. And Tiri hastened, and as the things were urgent for the king, and he took a child from one of his servants, which his handmaids had borne to him that day. And Tiri brought the child to the king and received value for him. And the Lord was with, and Yahweh was with Tiri and his manners. And Nimrod might not cause Abram's death. And the king took the child from Tiri, and with all his might dashed his head to the ground, for he thought it had been Abram. And this was concealed from him from that day. And it was forgotten by the king, and it was the will of the providence not to suffer Abram's death. And Terah took Abram, his son, secretly together with his mother and nurse, and concealed them in a cave. And he brought them there provision monthly. And Yahweh was with Abram and the cave, and he grew up. And Abram was in the cave 10 years. And the king and his prince, soothsayers and sages, through that the king had killed Abram. And Hiram, the son of Terah, Abram's older brother, took a wife in those days. And Hiram was 39 years old when he took her. And the wife of Hiram conceived and bare a son, and he called his son Lot. And she conceived again and bare a daughter, and she called her name Milcah. And she again and conceived and bare a daughter again, and she called her name Sarah. And Haran was 42 years old when he begot Sarai, which was in the 12th year of the life of Abram. And in those days Abram and his mother and his nurse went out from the cave, as the king and his subjects had forgotten the affairs of Abram. And when Abram came out from the cave, he went to Noah and his son Sham, and he remained with them to learn the instructions of Yahweh and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was. And Abram served Noah and Sham, his sons, for a long time. And Abram was in Noah's house 39 years, and Abram knew Yahweh, and from 3 years old. And he went in the ways of Yahweh until the day of the death, as Noah and his son Shem had taught him. And all the sons of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against Yahweh and rebelled against him. And they served other false gods, and they forgotten Yahweh, who had created them and the earth. And the inhabitants of the earth made unto themselves at that time, every man his false gods, false gods of wood, and false gods of stone, which could neither speak, hear, nor deliver. And the sons of men served them, and they became their false gods. And the king and all his servants and Tyre with all the household were with them, and the first of those that served the false gods of wood and stone. And Tyre had 12 false gods of large size made of wood and stone after the 12 months of the year. And he served each of the 1 month. And every month Tyre would bring his meat offerings and drink offerings to the false gods. Thus did Tyre all the days. And all the generations were wicked in the sight of Yahweh, and thus made every man his false gods. But they forsake Yahweh, who had created them all. And there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew Yahweh, for they served each other's man-made false gods, except Noah and his household. And all those who were under his counsel knew Yahweh in those days. And Abram, the son of Tyre, was waxing great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it, and Yahweh was with him, Abram. And Yahweh gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew all the works of the generations were vain, and that all their false gods were vain, and there were all averred. And Abram saw the sun shining upon the earth. And Abram said unto himself, surely now the sun that shines upon the earth is God, and him will I serve. Did you hear that? Surely the sun, S-U-N, that shines upon the earth is God. It's a reflection of who God is, yes, and all his beauty. This is why when people get undressed and they go to the beaches and they're almost naked and they get cancer, because they're profaning God's light that he gives to mankind down here on earth. And many other things. But again, Abram said unto himself, surely now this sun, S-U-N, that shines upon the earth is God, and him will I serve. And Yahweh. And Abram served the sun in that day, and he prayed to him. And when the evening came, the sun set as usual. And Abram said to himself, surely this cannot be God, because it's only a reflection, like I said, of Yahweh. It's his power of holy light, not just the elements of gas they say. Who made all those things? Who put light in all those things? To make the elements themselves cannot make the light unless the elements themselves has put light in there that eternally will burn with those things afterwards. And that's God's light he eternally put in there to make that star, that great star that we see every day. And Abram still considered, and then Abram served the sun the day and prayed to him. And then when the even came, the sun set as usual, and Abram said within himself, surely this cannot be God himself, but it is God's light eternally, amen, and that's what he recognized in the first place. And Abram still continued to speak with himself, who is he who made the heavens and the earth, who created upon the earth? Where is he? And that night darkness over him, and he lifted up his eyes towards the west, north, south, and east, and saw the the sun had vanished from the earth, and the day became dark, and Abram saw the stars, the moon, because before him, and he says, surely this is God who created the whole earth as well as man. Behold, these his servants of false gods around him. And Abram served the moon and prayed to it all night. And in the morning, when it was light and the sun shone upon the earth, as usual, Abram saw all the things that Yahweh God had made upon the earth. And Abram said unto himself, surely these are not gods that made the earth, all mankind, but these are the servants of God. But all these things are servants of God. They're basically that rebelled against God and try to put themselves up as false gods. And see, this is what he's saying. But he was saying that he saw the reflection of God's light in the moon, the reflection of God's light in the sun, because it is his reflection. He put his light into that eternally burn with all the elements that God created it to have. But first of all those elements would not burn light without God's light first being put in, his life being put into that, allowing it to burn, allowing the moon to reflect light in the first place. And this is what he's learning. This is what humanity has forgotten. This is how great God is. He puts his reflection in all things of life. And when we don't acknowledge it, we're actually starting to digress into sin, because we're not recognizing how great God's power is and his life is in everything. All right, and let's continue. And then in the morning, when it was light and the sun shone upon the earth, as usual, Abram saw all these things that Yahweh God had made upon the earth. And Abram said unto himself, surely these are not gods that made the earth and all the mankind, but these are servants of God, of Yahweh. And Abram remembered in the house of Noah, there knew Yahweh and his ways. And he served Yahweh all the days of his life. And all the generations forgot Yahweh and served other false gods of wood and stone, and rebelled all those days. And the king Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control. And all the earth was of one tongue and words of union. And all the prince of Nimrod and his great men took counsel together to Put, Mizraim, Cush, and Canaan with their families, and they said to each other, come, let us build ourselves a city, and in it be strong tower, and its tops reach the heavens, and we will make ourselves fame, so that we may reign upon the whole world. In other orders, that evil of our enemies may cause to cease from us, that we may reign, multiply over them, and that we may not become scattered over the earth on account of their wars. And they all went before the king, and they told the king these words, and the king agreed with them in their affairs, and he did so. And all the families assembled and consulted of 600,000 men, and they went and seeked and external piece of ground to build the city and the tower. And they sought in the whole earth, and they found none like one of the valleys on the east of the land of Shamar, about two days walking. And they journeyed there, and they dwelled there. And they began to make bricks and burnt fire to build the city and the tower that they imaged and complete. And the buildings of the tower was upon them with transgression and sins. And they began to build it. And whereas they built against Yahweh, the God of the heavens, the image in their hearts to war against him and to sin into heaven. And all these people and all these families divided themselves in three parts. The first said, "We will ascend into heaven to fight against God." Wow, there you go. And the second said, "We will ascend to heaven and place our own gods there to serve them." And the third part said, "We will ascend to heaven, smite God with the bows and spears." And God knew all their works and all their evil thoughts. And he saw the city and the towers which they had built. And then they were building, and they built themselves great city and very high tower, strong tower. And on the account of their heights of the mortar and the brick did not reach the builders in their ascent to it, until those who were up and completely full year. And after that they reached to the builders and gave them mortar and bricks, and thus was it done daily. Behold, these ascent and others descended the whole day. And if the bricks should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. And if a man fell and died, none of them would look upon him. And Yahweh knew their thoughts. And it came to pass when they were building, and they cast their arrows towards the heavens, and all the arrows fell upon them, filled with blood. And when they saw them, they said to each other, "Surely we have slain all those who are in heaven, for this was from Yahweh, in order to cause them error, in order to destroy them from off the face of the ground." And they built the tower and the city, and they did this thing daily until many days and years were eclipsed. And God said to the 70 angels who stood foremost before him, to those who were near to him, saying, "Come, let us descend and confuse their tongues." And the one man should not understand the language of his neighbor. And they did so upon them. And from that day following, they forgotten each man his neighbor's tongue. And they could not understand and speak in one tongue. And when the builders took from the hands of their neighbors lime of stone, which he did not order, the builders could cast it away and throw it upon the neighbor, and he would die. And they did so many days, and they killed many of them as this matter. And Yahweh smote three divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and the designs, and those who said, "We will ascend to heaven and serve other false gods." because like apes and elephants, and those who said, "We will smite the heavens with arrows," and Yahweh killed them, one man through the hand of his neighbors, and the third division of those who said, "We will send to heaven," and fight against him themselves. And Yahweh scattered them throughout the earth, and those were left amongst them. And when they knew and understood the evil which was coming upon them, they forsook the building, and they also became scattered upon the face of the earth. And they ceased building the city and the tower. Therefore he called that place Babel. For there the Lord Yahweh confounded the language of the whole earth. Behold, it was at the east of the land of Shumer. And as the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth, swallowed up a third part thereof. And fire also descended from heaven, burnt another third, and another third was left to this day. And it was on that part which was allotted, and its circumstance in 3 days' walk. And many of the sons of men died in the tower, and the people without numbers. So what do we learn? We learn to be righteous and learn from the original righteous one after the flood, which is Noah, which taught Abram all things. And when he grew a little older, he remembered those great teachings of Noah and became a great man himself, which later Abram became Abraham later on. And where did Abraham come from? He came from Seth. From Sham. Sham was the great grandfather of Abram, which became Abraham, and the great 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 grandfather was Noah of Abram, which became Abraham. And then you got Nabor and Tamar, with his father, with Tamar profaned God, and I can imagine him being a son to his father that would serve false gods. That's pretty hard. But he remembered the first righteous man after the flood, Noah, and then his after that Sham, and remembered them and their teachings that he taught. This is why Abram, which became Abraham, was so great, because he took every learning from Noah and Shem, and he became a great young man and became older man, became Abraham, which became the father of all the nations of the world, pretty much, which now is in rebellion against the teachings of Noah and Shem that we should all know. See, that's where all the original teachings of the Bible was translated from, was what Noah and Shem got from, Enoch and Methuselah, and what they got from the first man that he created, Adam. So all these teachings from Genesis to Revelations come all the way from the righteous people, all the way, and it was concealed and brought up to this day into what we have now. And more was, but there was so much, and that's where Moshe got all these things he wrote in the Torah. But there was older books than the Torah that he got some of the ideas from, but also he was learned from what the family gathered down from Noah Sham, Abram, to Moshe, to now. And so we're heirs of all the original what Adam was shown from God. Because Adam did not go astray from God. It was his family and families of families that did. Okay? So I went from Adam to Seth to to Enoch to Methuselah to Noah to Abram, which became Abraham, to Moshe, and to now. Amen. So let's be the Noah generation, honey. Praise God. My beautiful, beautiful people. God's honey of his life. You might say, why would someone that is teaching us call us honey? Because God wants us to be like honey. God wants each of our lives to produce what honey produces. What is honey? Honey is a healer, right? If you have a wound, you can put honey on it. And it's food too, right? Well, again, it's a like-minded example of what Yeshua HaMashiach, the Spirit of Yahweh, Jesus talked about when he says we need to be not like the fig tree that produces no fruit. We need to produce fruit in our life. Well, so should we produce honey in our life for God. We need to be God's honeys. We need to be his honey and of his ways, just like Noah was, just like Abraham, which was Abram here, became Abraham. We need to be like them. And before the pre-flood, like Enoch and Methuselah was. But after the flood, like Noah, Sham, and Abram was. Amen. Let's be the Noah generation. And what was said about Noah was said that he was a preacher of righteousness. Because even though his heart sank for his brothers and sisters, and it did indeed, he preached righteousness to all that passed by when he was doing, even before the ark, before he started it, he was preaching the righteousness of God. He was following after suit of what Adam did, and Seth did, and what Enoch did, and what Methuselah did. And Noah did like manner, and then after Noah, Sham, and then Abram, which became Abraham, and then certainly later down the line with Moses. And you can honestly say the Maccabees carried the torch again off of those things to now. And so we need to be the people of Noah. Noah is the very thing we need to become like. This is the very element that the church and synagogues do not talk about. He says in the last days it will be like the day of Noah and Lot. But we forget what characteristics that Noah and Lot had. But mostly Lot is not the one we need to look on, but Noah. Noah. Because God is saying underneath what he's saying to us, Noah is what we need to be like in this last generation that are saved. We need to be the Noah generation. We need to be the Noah generation. We need to be the Noah generation. Amen. So let me pray for the lost for you to get saved. Just pray this prayer and be saved. Pray this prayer. Acknowledge your sins and your wickedness to God. Turn from them and be saved. Amen. Pray this prayer. Dear God, Yahweh, I ask you into my spirit, soul, and body as Lord and Savior of my life. Love you very much, Yeshua Jesus. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, welcome to the family of God. It's not going to be roses either, but you will feel more complete. because you're part of the God's family. He'll never forsake you, never leave you. God is with you. Amen. God loves you. I pray for the baptism of the Spirit of God to flow upon you and bring rest upon your life. May you serve Yahweh all the day of life through what the experience of Yahweh's Spirit when He took flesh and became Jesus and died upon the cross, Yeshua HaMashiach, and went back with the atonement of what He did on the cross and went back to His greater self and put the atonement upon the throne. So here you go. And then he took himself back. His spirit came back to earth and dwelled with us. Amen. So blessings be with you. May the baptism of the Spirit flow upon you now. Let's end with this shalom prayer. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Holiness brings peace that passes all understanding, never severed, never broken. Complete peace of God. Let's be the Noah generation. Let's not quit on God, because God's not quit on us. So just don't be this way. This be the Noah generation. This be everything Noah was, except for that one time. But he was hurting. I mean, that was after the flood. You don't even know yourself if you would be getting all doing what Noah did at that time. And his son was unholy, Ham, and did what he did. His son. But he should have restrained. Ham should have restrained his son from doing what he did with Noah. But you would have been out of sorts too if you had a perfect world and you go to chaos of not even looking close to what it would look like 300 more years down the road, because it takes a while for things to recuperate. Okay, it's not like overnight like he did when he first created the earth. The earth had to heal itself. It went through ice age, probably 50, 100 years later, and then that's what's reported. That's why they report it, because it was. And then 300 years after, 400 years, then everything settled down, and everything over the earth was pretty much formed the way it's going to be formed. And then it's, of course, after the breaking up of the huge landmass that it used to be as well. That's why in the Bible it's recorded Peleg, which means division of the land, that happened. So I'm telling you now, stay the course with God Almighty. Amen. Do not leave the Lord. Be like Noah. Don't be like Nimrod. Don't be like these rest that follow these false things of today. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Be at peace. God bless.